Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Triple R Ryan's Raw Reactions, and today we're doing a deep dive into the Bryan Kohberger case of the Idaho murders. I know that this is going to be a trial starting soon, so I wanted to deep dive into it. Let's quickly look at an overview, and then we're going to go into this video here, which is 9 leaked details in Bryan Kohberger's case revealed. The 2022 University of Idaho killings refers to the brutal murders of four University of Ohio students, Kaylee, Ethan, Zana, and Madison, in an off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho, in November 2022. The killings were discovered on November 13th after the victims had returned to their shared home after a Saturday night out. The victims were found stabbed to death, and there were no signs of forced entry. The suspect is Bryan Kohberger, a criminology PhD student at nearby Washington State University. He was arrested December 2022 and charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. I know this is an insane case. A lot of you have been asking me to look into it. Once again, I believe it did say right there that I believe the trial is starting within the next month or two. Let me know if I'm wrong. And that they've been delaying it, which that seems to be a thing. So let's do it. As always, like the video, comment, subscribe, help me grow the channel. Here we go.
I'm Anjanette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. Now, all I can say is wow about this new information that has been revealed by Dateline about the Bryan Kohberger case. Jury selection in Kohberger's death penalty case is scheduled to begin on July 30th. That's less than 3 months.
Okay, this video is 3 or 4 weeks old. So jury selection will be starting within the next month and a couple weeks
from now. And it's not that far off. With the trial that close, this trove of new information has come out, and it was aired, as I mentioned, on an episode of Dateline.
Just starting off, he just looks like he did it. Am I? You know, you could just look at some people in the eyes and go, you know, something cold about you, something dead about that stare.
It revealed Kohberger's Google searches for pornography.
Okay.
Selfies he took of him.
Oh, hold on. Hold on. Yo, that's the scariest photo I've ever seen in my life. He looks like a Sith Lord from Star Wars. Dude, he literally looks like Voldemort. No. Hey, hold on. That's the scariest photo I've ever seen.
Himself wearing all black,
that's
including hoodies, and searching several times over 3 months before and after the murders for serial killer Ted Bundy. Now, prosecutors could possibly use the
he's guilty.
Searches for pornography about a woman being passed out to point to a possible motive. Dateline also revealed who investigators believed was the intended target that morning and the order in which the 4 students were killed. We'll talk more about that in a bit. It's actually something we've discussed here a few times on Crime Fix in the past. Kohberger's lawyers
shout out to Crime Fix
have said he maintains his innocence in the murders of Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle.
May they rest in peace.
In the early morning hours of November 22nd, 2022. Now, prosecutors have said they linked Bryan Kohberger to the murders on King Road through a single source of DNA left on a K-bar knife sheath just like this one. That DNA left on the inner snap of the knife sheath. This knife sheath, the one's very similar to this one, was left next to Maddie Mogen's body on her bed.
There you go. Hey, let's close the case then. What did we learn about the O.J. Simpson trial? Okay. When the evidence is right in front of your face, there's a reason.
Kohberger was taken into custody at his parents' home in Pennsylvania on December 30th, 2022. Police have revealed in hearings that he was wearing a black hoodie, and they feared he was destroying evidence, so they broke down the door of his parents' house, rushed in, and took him into custody. Police said they could see Kohberger in his parents' kitchen using a drone with a video feed.
Dude, what? First of all, he's so scary looking. And I don't mean, I'm not trying to be like super judgmental here. Innocent until proven guilty, right? Okay, I get it, but Lord have mercy. He was using a drone in his parents' kitchen, searching up women that were passed out on certain websites that I don't want to say, and was searching about Ted Bundy. Now, look, I know serial killers have a big, it's a big thing. I've searched for serial killer interviews and stuff before. I think they're very interesting, but I'm also not someone that is suspected of a murder. So, like, Bryan, come on.
Kohberger's lawyers have said his parents were zip-tied, and Kohberger was taken into custody. And Kohberger,
Zip-tied.
in his own kind of odd way, suggested to the officers that they get coffee sometime at a later date.
Huh?
Kohberger's lawyers have suggested that that is just one example.
He wants to get coffee with the. What am I? I need all the comments I can get on this video. I need all the lore. I need everything, because when this trial starts, I'm sure it's going to be very highly covered. I'm going to be covering it. I'm going to be watching it. I'm going to be reacting to everything. So this is me trying to get up to speed. I was supposed to do a Karen body cam video today, but I was like, you know what? Something on my brain said, I want to just cover this today.
Of the way in which he lacks the ability to pick up on social cues because he has autism. But back to this new information that's come out. Kohberger was working on
autism is one thing. That doesn't make you commit crime like that.
getting his PhD at Washington State University in Pullman, Washington. He left Pennsylvania for Washington in late June. He got his Washington driver's license on July 1st.
He looks normal there.
Later in July, Bryan Kohberger went to a pool party in Moscow at the Grove Apartments. We've reported on that in the past. But Dateline reports Kohberger made some women there uncomfortable, including a married woman who had to signal to her husband to come over and intervene. A woman named Holly told Dateline that she exchanged numbers with Kohberger at that party. She said he later texted her about their shared interest in hiking. The text was oddly formal, she said. It read, "Hey, I am pretty sure we spoke about hiking trips yesterday. I really enjoyed that activity, so please let me know. Thanks."
She might have dodged a bullet, or in this case, a knife.
Holly told Dateline she got distracted and never responded. The following month, on August 16th, Dateline says Bryan Kohberger's cell phone records show he Googled Ted Bundy's name with a typo.
Todd Bundy? Ted Bandy?
And a paper written about Bundy by one of his professors entitled Ted Bundy on the Malignant Being, an Analysis of the Justificatory Discourse of a Serial Killer.
That's a mouthful.
Ted Bundy killed women in the 1970s. He went to college in Washington State and then moved east to Florida, killing 2 sorority sisters at the Chi Omega House in January of 1978. He was sentenced to death and executed in
Would you guys be down if I also do deep dives on older cases like Ted Bundy and I forget his name, but the clown, that one clown guy that was really scary, and you know, is that just like old news, like whatever, we're over it type of thing, you know? Because I mean, there's so many fascinating cases out there, you know. Jeffrey Dahmer, obviously. I can't think of that clown's name. That's bothering me.
1989. Ironically, Bryan Kohberger's mother had actually written to her local paper at the time opposing the death penalty for Ted Bundy.
Oh, boy.
But that was before Bryan Kohberger was even born. That same day,
It's in their genetics.
on August 16th, Maddie Mogan had posted a photo on Instagram of her and her roommates. And that very same day, a noise complaint was called in to Moscow police for the house on King Road.
Is this your place?
Oh, my God, that's loud.
Yeah.
So sorry. I'll turn this way down.
Perfect. You know why we're here?
And I assume noise.
Noise, yeah.
5 days later,
Okay, well, turn it back up.
the night before classes started at the University of Idaho, Bryan Kohberger was pulled over less than 2 miles away from the King Road house. We've told you about that before. 5 days later, Dateline says Kohberger Googled, "When can a cop detain you?" Lately,
When can a cop detain you? What is he looking that up for?
I've been seeing some really amazing makeup trends on social media, but no matter the trend, I feel like there's always that one brand you
Huh?
come back to. For me, it's Thrive
Why? Hold on. Yo. No. Law and Crime Network. Yo, you gotta do better. You can't be throwing. Where did that come from?
5 days later,
What?
Dateline says Kohberger Googled,
You know when you do a brand read or something, an ad read, you gotta like make it seamless.
"When can a cop detain you?"
You talk about he Googled a cop detaining you. If they went into like an Express VPN or something here, it makes sense.
Lately,
They just go into she starts going to a makeup ad read?
I've been
Come on. You gotta do better than that.
says those searches included pornography related to passed out, forced, drugged, and sleeping.
Jesus.
And remember when Ann Taylor recently asked Judge Hippler to bar prosecutors from using 2 words to describe Bryan Kohberger?
Our request is that the court not allow the state to label him in testimony as a psychopath or a sociopath, because any kind of testing is unreliable. That would relate to, or that would become problematic within the rules of evidence to do so, and the inflammatory nature.
If your lawyer has to basically beg the court and the judge to not have people call your client a psychopath or a sociopath, that's not a good sign.
Of those kinds of labels would...
I'm not aware of any testing that has been done that has reached that conclusion. Am I missing something?
You are not missing anything. There has not been any testing. There has not been any labeling. This, again, is my opportunity to bring a preventative motion to protect Mr. Kohberger's constitutional rights.
We may now know why Ann Taylor made that request. Dateline reports that in late September, Kohberger Googled sociopathic traits in college students. And later in October, Kohberger Googled, can psychopaths behave prosocially?
Look, I understand Google searches. People Google search things all the time. I've Google searched millions of things, right? So you could say it's curiosity. But once again, with all of the other things that I'm seeing already about this guy, these aren't helping his cause. The DNA found on the knife satchel, and he's already was in the area, has an obsession with serial killers, is Googling sociopaths, psychopaths, is watching a very weird type of, let's just say, kink video. I'm not kink shaming nobody, but you know, it's adding up to some weird numbers here.
Now, it's not clear if these searches were related to his coursework, himself, or something going on in class. Kohberger was certainly having a rough time adjusting to life at Washington State. He was a teaching assistant, and in early November, WSU faculty met with him about an improvement plan after he met a student at her car and gave her the creeps. After this, there were more visits
he seems
to
to be creeping out a lot of women, too, by the way.
Moscow, with Kohberger's car pinging off the cell tower that covered the King Road house. That's something we've told you about many times, that an FBI analyst will testify that Kohberger's phone was in the area of the King Road house on 23 occasions from July until November 7th.
Oh, he was planning this. This is premeditated. He was probably stalking those girls, huh? My question is, if 4 people ended up dying, was there someone else involved here? How the heck did he kill 4 people? That seems, you know, were they and they're in separate rooms, and or is this dude just like some criminal mastermind? I mean, I guess not if he's caught, but like 23 times? You can't just say, oh, maybe he was driving by. The coincidences are just too insane.
2022, and these visits were late at night. No one has ever said whether the car stopped near the house or not. Dateline also reports that investigators found several Instagram photos of female students from Washington State University and the University of Idaho on Kohberger's phone, and that some of those students were friends of and Instagram followers of Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana. Now, when it comes to...
He was stalking, for sure. It's what is the motive, though, is the question, right? And for some psychopaths or sociopaths, there really doesn't even have to be a motive. It could be like, oh, they swiped left on me on a dating app, or they unmatched me on a dating app, and that could be enough for a dude to go mental, man. It's insane.
To the night of the murders, Dateline revealed investigators' theory about the intended target, and they also revealed details that only the killer would know. They believe Maddie Mogan was the target, but they don't know when she could have caught Kohberger's eye. They believe she was the target since the killer went to her room, but didn't expect Kaylee Gonsalves to be there.
I see, so maybe he panicked.
Which threw off his plan. Dateline reports that investigators believe Xana Kernodle heard the loud struggle between Kaylee and the killer, and went to check it out. But then the killer chased Xana to her bedroom where she fought for her life.
Jesus, man.
And then Ethan Chapin, asleep or passed out in the bed, was killed with one knife strike to an artery, and his
Jesus, dude. While he was asleep?
lower legs carved in some way by the killer. Dateline
What? Hold on. Sorry. What?
strike to an artery, and his lower legs carved in some way by the killer. Dateline
Carved? Dude, what are we dealing with here?
quotes investigative sources as saying the killer sat down in a chair in Xana's room exhausted, leaving impressions from blood on the chair before leaving the house, walking past surviving roommate DM, and speeding away, leaving the neighborhood. Later,
Oh, so one person there survived, but even that, they probably have either survivor's guilt, which I know is a thing, or the amount of trauma you can have. I can't even, I don't even want to, or can't even imagine if 4 of your roommates all were murdered and then you're the only one that survived. I can't imagine what that would do to someone.
later that morning, after 6 a.m., Dateline says Kohberger called a phone registered to his father 3 times, talking one time for at least 37 minutes. Then his phone showed he returned to Moscow for a time after 9 a.m., but then went home. Later that morning at 10:31 a.m.,
He looks like he's in the damn Twilight Saga. Like an awkward Cullen brother.
he snapped this selfie, giving a thumbs up in the bathroom mirror. We showed that photo to you nearly 2 months ago when prosecutors filed it in a motion. 3 days after the murders, Dateline reports that Kohberger Googled the University of Idaho murders for the first time and then Googled his own name. He followed news
I wonder why. This better be an open and shut case, man.
of the case, watching at least 60 items about it, including pieces on Law and Crime and
Oh, gosh.
other YouTube channels. He took more selfies in black hoodies and even watched a show in December on YouTube called Ted Bundy, The Essence of a Psychopath, and watched another show about the murders, comparing the murders to Ted Bundy with Kaylee and Maddie's photo on the thumbnail.
So to talk about all of this, I want to bring in Josh Ritter. He is the host of Courtroom Confidential on
Yo, this is crazy.
YouTube. He's a former prosecutor with the LADA's office and currently a defense attorney. Josh, what are your thoughts on the sheer amount of information that Dateline aired the other night? It just seems like an incredible amount of information to come out before trial, weeks before trial.
Yeah, it was wild. I was not expecting that at all. And as you continue to watch the Dateline episode, it kept on coming. It wasn't like they had a couple of brand new revelations. It seemed like the entire episode just was filled with really shocking and very detailed and what I would call kind of insider information on all of this. I mean, we received details even to the point of what they believe took place inside of that home. And to your point, I'm curious how much of this is information we're going to actually learn at trial and what of any of it might be admissible.
Yeah, I was wondering, will some of this even be admissible? Will some of it even be deemed to be relevant by the judge? I mean, there is talk about searches for pornography. I mean, I think that the state could present that as potential motive evidence. Why else would somebody go into a house?
Oh, I guess the house is abandoned now. I mean, I guess that's the case when there's a crime of this magnitude. I would assume that the house is just shut down. Also, why would anyone want to live there?
House with, and target one bedroom potentially in the middle of the night.
So it seems like he went to just take out one person who was Maddie, found the other roommate there, got rid of her. Another roommate came down, Zana, got rid of her, and then just for some reason, what if someone's sleeping and why would, dude, it's impossible to think about why they would have done this.
With a girl sleeping and passed out when there turned out to be 2 young women in there. I mean, that could be motive evidence. Or it could be something that comes in during the penalty phase if they get to that point, if there's a guilty verdict. So these are all things that the judge is going to have to determine whether or not they're admissible in the first place. And then the selfies on top of that.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think you nailed it when it comes to the point of motive. Motive, in my view, has always been the biggest question mark that the prosecution is going to have to answer in this case, and that we haven't really heard much about.
Right.
Here or there, we've heard that, perhaps he may have driven by the house previously, that maybe he had some overlap with the girls inside of the home from the community at his college. But it wasn't really clear as to why. Why was he targeting this house? Was there anyone in particular inside of that home that was the target? And you're right. I think
this stuff, though, like, it could also just be as simple as he, saw her at college or saw her passing by or whatever, and found out she had a boyfriend after like finding her on social media, and that was enough to upset her. I remember with the Christina Grimmie, may she rest in peace. It was just, a fan of hers that was mad that she was with somebody and wasn't with her. The motives can be so minor. You know what I'm saying? They don't always have to be this obvious in your face, oh, she threw eggs at Bryan Kohberger when he was 8 years old and he's held a grudge ever since. It's usually not that, is what I've learned.
A lot of what we're learning may provide insight into all of that. The idea of the pornography that he was looking at, was this some sort of fixation that he had?
I also wonder, did he want to do something to her that way, which is awful, and then the other girl was in there and that foiled his whole plan? You know what I'm saying? And it went haywire.
The idea that he was looking at and had saved and had a large cache of images on his phone that were taken of other young women that happened to have a connection to the girls inside the home.
That's crazy.
But nothing that I heard in that Dateline episode that still shows a direct connection to any one of the girls inside of the home. But it was certainly much more information on that front, the issue of motive, than we've heard before now.
So he had images of other girls that they know in his phone. So this has to be some sort of stalking plan.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've repeatedly heard, and even Judge Hippler has said, the digital evidence doesn't show any connection between Kohberger and the victims. But this sounds like there's potentially a tangential connection if there are indeed photos of their friends and Instagram followers on Kohberger's phone. And so there was also mention of something we had reported a week or two ago, that the state has an expert that says that there was some anti-forensic wiping of something going on his work computer at WSU in the days before and after the homicides, which is very interesting. So if you're the
what was he trying to hide then, huh?
prosecutor, and you're sitting at home on Friday night watching Dateline, is this giving you heartburn? I mean, this is the biggest case of Bill Thompson's career. He's at the end of his career. He was supposed to be retiring. Is this giving you heartburn? I can't imagine, with a non-dissemination order in place, that he signed off on this, but maybe, who knows? We don't know how this stuff came out.
No, I think you are getting heartburn. I think you're throwing your TV dinner at the screen. You're very upset by this because, and remember too, this case had come under such scrutiny for its media attention that they moved it all the way from upstate Moscow, Idaho, down to Boise, just to try to address the issues of the amount of attention that this case was getting. This is only going to exacerbate and accelerate all of that interest.
This is going to be a very big trial and a very big deal, as it should be.
And yes, if this is not privileged but private investigatory material that you had not released yourself, and that you have a very close-knit group of investigators and you know exactly who has access to this information, and you're making sure that that's not being disseminated, to then see perhaps that information itself, or second degree removed access to that information being put on television, I imagine they were probably very furious with it.
Yeah.
And the defense has to be furious as well.
Yeah, I mean, they are concerned with the public already convicting their client before a jury has been picked.
Once again, man, you know, like some people, you can look at somebody and see like they look warm, like a warm person, and then you look at somebody and they just look cold, and it's hard to describe that. I don't know what that is or why that is. Maybe it's just a feeling or an inkling. But whenever I see this guy, and I know I'm seeing him in times where things are a little bit insane, right? He's locked up, and but like he just looks so cold and lifeless. It's just hard to put a finger on it.
That was their biggest concern when they asked for a change of venue. So the way that this Dateline episode came out, and I'm not trying to say that there was something about it that was unfair in the way that they presented the information, but the way that it all played out, it made the case for Bryan Kohberger, in my view, much more convincing. And so now you have to wonder if the people in that potential jury pool who have not, at my understanding, haven't even been sent a summons yet, if those people have seen this episode, I imagine that's going to be another difficulty during jury selection for them.
Yeah, true. They're going to have to be honest, because you can't have any public swaying. Also, imagine getting chosen for that jury. Oh my gosh. You're going to be it's going to be your life for months.
The defense, are you filing a motion today or in the next day? Because there's a pretrial conference scheduled for this week, the final pretrial conference scheduled for Thursday. Are you filing a motion about something having to do with this? I mean, this has got to come up on Thursday.
I can't imagine what that motion would be, but knowing this defense team, they are very litigious and they probably will file something. From the judge's perspective, too, he's got to be very upset.
Yeah, I mean, the defense team is definitely going to say, I swear to God, if this ends up getting this man off, I swear, because they're going to say, hey, this is unfair. Dateline put out a hit piece. Dateline put out information that we should be having on trial. Why are they having access to this kind of investigational work? Why isn't this blah, blah, blah? So they're going to say that because of public perspective being changed, because of all this information, that Bryan Kohberger is not going to have a fair and honest trial. And I feel like what they're going to do is they're probably going to motion to push it back, motion, you know, because that's usually what happens here.
I mean, he's I thought walked a very fine line and reasonably so in saying, you know, I'm going to lift certain aspects of a gag order and certain things that are under seal because this is a public trial and we want some of this information released. But obviously some of it is very closely guarded and central to the prosecution's case, and they don't want that information coming out so people don't prejudge it ahead of time. So yeah, I am sure that there are going to be some very difficult conversations at this next conference hearing.
So let's talk a little bit about what was in there. We've got Bryan Kohberger, who's a criminology student, studying in...
Of course he's a criminology student too. You know, like, of course he is.
Washington State, Googling about Ted Bundy, a prolific serial killer in the 1970s who started killing people when he was a college student in Washington State.
Those parallels are crazy.
Now, he had a professor who wrote a paper about Ted Bundy. So is this part of his studies? Was he looking to do something on Ted Bundy with part of his studies? We don't know. But it certainly doesn't look good. And then he's got this stuff. He's watching programs about Ted Bundy and he's wearing the black hoodie. And there's like that advertisement, the thumbnail for the Ted Bundy show, and Bundy in the thumbnail is wearing the black hoodie.
It certainly looked like in those photos he was emulating something. It almost looked like he wants to look dark and scary, and you know what I'm saying? Like it feels very targeted.
And it almost kind of seems like, is he mimicking or trying to idolize
emulate,
or replicate Ted Bundy?
Yeah, and this all goes back to your previous point about motive. Again, I think that
but then the defense can easily just say it's just a hoodie. He's just wearing a hoodie. You know, this is gonna be tough, man.
Prosecution is really going to need to present as much of that they can to the jury, because the jury's going to be wondering why. If you're accusing this man of committing these horrific crimes, what connection does he have to the victims? And maybe it is something like he was emulating or trying to be like someone that he, even a serial killer that he may have admired. Now, the defense obviously is going to say, what are you talking about? He's a criminology student. Of course he's going to be studying these things.
Right.
Of course he's going to be Googling someone like Ted Bundy. It's part of his studies. And don't try to tell me that just because he's in a hoodie and a selfie that somehow that makes him a guilty man.
Exactly what I said. That's an easy case for them to build. The DNA, though, should not be so simple. The pinging of his car or phone being on their street should not be so easy to defend. Now, they could probably just say he lives 20 minutes away, he goes this way to get food, whatever. But still, those are things that are, bigger than, to me, the selfie and even the Google searches, those are minor in terms of what else they found about him.
But the prosecution is presenting this kind of case of tiny bits and a tapestry of information that hopefully convinces the jury to give them some idea as to why this man would commit this crime.
And,
It would be my, if I'm the prosecution, I would say, hey, everybody, just look at this guy. All right, case adjourned.
something that I can see now why they
I'm being silly, but you know what I mean?
wanted his, phone information, Google searches suppressed. You've got him Googling about psychopathy, sociopaths. I mean, that could have been part of his studies.
I mean, also the Google search of when can a cop detain you. Yes, that could be a part of his studies because he's a criminology major, but that's just so...
too.
It's just so ironic, right?
But I'm sure the prosecution has a theory about that as well.
Yeah, again, what's so bizarre about this case, or there's many unique things about this case, but all of this, if it wasn't for him being a criminology student, I would say is far more powerful. If you just have a person who's in no way connected to the study of crimes, someone studying, someone Googling Ted Bundy or psychopathy, or how does a person who's a sociopath or psychopath behave normally in society. I mean, all of this is incredibly suspect stuff, unless you're given the background that that person is, in fact, studying for their PhD in criminology.
It almost makes me wonder if this was all a part of his plan. Like, ooh, I'll just be a criminology major. So whenever I do act out on this desire that I have to be the next Ted Bundy, I will commit the perfect crime and I will leave no breadcrumbs and I will have no suspicions because any evidence against me could just be said with my major. Could that be ironic, or could that have been his plan all along?
So I imagine it will be admissible. I imagine the prosecution will ask for it because it does give some insights into what he was thinking in the days leading up to these murders. But if you're the defense, I think you're, pounding your fists on the table saying this is irrelevant. It really shows nothing. All it shows is that the man happened to have been studying criminology.
There's going to be a lot of hearsay.
And that's probably the point they're going to try to drive home to the jury.
And there's this other thing about, Dateline said he's playing the Britney Spears song performed by somebody else, the Britney Spears song Criminal, where the lyrics are, he's a villain by the devil's law. He's a killer just for fun, fun, fun. That man's a snitch and unpredictable. He's got no conscience. He's got none, none, none.
Not her reading off Britney lyrics.
No, I don't even know if that comes into evidence.
Probably not. Because this was a big thing before with Columbine, with Marilyn Manson's music, and then they found that like his music isn't the cause of something like that. Same thing with like GTA, like does it promote violence and shootings? It's like it's still a video game. I don't know if you can just say because he listened to a Britney Spears song. I would say that to me is not really evidence.
I mean, he's listening to a song
Right.
on his phone. Is that even relevant?
Yeah, at some point, the judge, I think, is going to have to draw a line and say, listen, you can find a nefarious angle on nearly everything that might be on that phone, but that doesn't make it relevant. That doesn't make it admissible. So
right, you could be like, oh my gosh, he went to a place called Killer Donuts 2 weeks before. Oh my God, and then it starts getting a little insane.
So if he's listening to one song in the midst of an entire playlist, probably not irrelevant. But if he's listening to one song repeatedly day after day, perhaps that does become more relevant. We don't know what the aspects are surrounding this particular song. Or
if that was on his Spotify Wrapped, maybe we got something. Let's check his Spotify Wrapped. Did I just cook there? Is that not a good idea? Because I'm telling you, if that song's on his Spotify Wrapped, because you can get that information. Anybody watching the trial, listen to me. The prosecutors, get his Spotify Wrapped. If that song is in there and it shows he played that song 1,000 times, we got something.
Or his searches for Ted Bundy or everything else. But the judge is going to have to make he's going to have to make a call on a lot of this. But I imagine some of it will come in.
Also, does the stuff with the workmate, the office mate of his, the friend of his, the woman who lived in his apartment complex come in? That to me seems like it could be possibly aggravating evidence if this gets to a penalty phase where this woman, she actually had a crush on him. They worked together. They were friends. And then she suspected that he broke into her apartment.
Oh, boy.
And moved some stuff around. She asked him to install a security camera, and he helped her do that. She then suspected maybe he had that on his phone. We don't know.
Probably.
If that's true. But does that come in during the trial phase? I'm not even sure that comes in.
Gosh, there's almost so much. There's almost too much. I feel like almost sometimes too much is a bad thing. Like we said, look at the O.J. Simpson trial. There was so much evidence that it almost hurt the trial, and he was free.
Judge is always, with any piece of evidence, going to have to weigh its probative and prejudicial value. And here the prosecution is going to say, listen, this shows the type of person. This shows
it shows his character.
MO. This shows internal desire to kind of control women,
stalk
over women, be invasive of their privacy. But the defense is going to counter and say, "Are you kidding me? This has nothing to do with the crimes charged. This is several degrees removed, and all you're doing is putting my client's character on trial, which is not permissible." And so, again, I don't know where the judge will come out on something like this, but I imagine he might lean towards the idea that it's a little more prejudicial than it is probative.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens this week. They still have that non-dissemination order, but it seems like that thing's been thrown out the window right now. I reached out to both Ann Taylor and Bill Thompson to see if they had a comment on
They definitely did not have a comment.
All of this, and they have not yet responded. And I don't think they will. Josh Ritter, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
So it should be interesting later this week at the final pretrial conference to see whether or not this Dateline episode comes up and this release of all of this new information that was certainly going to be part of the state's case at trial. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.
You guys want me to do more of this? Should I keep going in the future? Bryan Kohberger loses big as new evidence is revealed. I'm down to deep dive in this. I'm down to go full on all this stuff, man. I really am. It's up to you if you want more of this. I really think that once this trial starts moving too, and we get some video and we get some court hearings and some things, that's going to be something that's going to get real juicy. So I would be down. I'm just trying to get all this stuff going, man. I'm trying to learn everything. That's a lot of stuff though, man. Let me know what you think. I'm curious. And any info that you may have, let me know, please. You guys have been awesome with the comments. The last video, the Isaac Barash video from the Johnny Depp trial has like almost 400 comments. Dude, that's so insane. Thank you. The fact that you guys are taking your time out of your day to watch these videos, to comment. We're getting closer to 5,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. Once again, when we hit 5,000 subscribers, I'm going to start my first Rotten Mango reaction, and that should be like a 2-hour video. And I'm going to start really flirting with these hour-plus videos for you guys. I do other things. I'm a Twitch streamer, and I do other things, so I don't always have just tons and tons of time, but I'm making this a priority because you guys are being so incredible. And I'm still going to be making these body cam reactions. I know they don't do as well, so please check those out if you're even here at the end. Show those some love because all the body cam videos are fun. I want to definitely do a couple more Karen body cam reactions soon. A little bit more lighthearted stuff. But all right, that's it. Thank you for being here. Thanks for watching. Bryan Kohberger is very creepy. That is all I have to say. I'll see you very soon right here on Triple R Ryan's Real Reactions. Have a great day or night. Peace out.